Hi, I am Ariana Ramos, a well-being and business coach. I help young professionals overcome chronic pain so that they can have the energy and drive to achieve their objectives while enjoying the process. In this video, I want to talk to you about the effect of chronic pain in your body and the implications that it has. The main objective is to raise awareness on the topic and point you towards a few solutions that are out there. So in the videos you can see here, we're going to talk about, first start with stress. What is the stress response, the fight or flight response? Then we're going to go towards what chronic pain is and what it means, the effects that it causes on the body, especially the effects that it causes on the brain. We're going to zoom in on that, and what you can do about it finally. So with that, let's get started. So what is fight or flight? And this brings us to what is stress in general. So stress is a response of your body to a perceived threat. It's actually a very physical response. It's not just a psychological response. Of course, it also involves a psychological response. And so when you can see here, what happens when you go into fight or flight is that you will perceive a threat with your eyes or your ears. This is going to send a signal to your amygdala, which is the part of your brain that processes emotions. And the amygdala will in turn send signals to release a lot of hormones that will give you more speed and that will help you react in time. Now, the fight or flight response should only be active for a few seconds or a few minutes at a time. And it's problematic when it's active for a very long time because these hormones, they cause problems in your body long term. So if we can see here in the picture on the right-hand side, you see what happens when you're in the fight or flight state is that you can a little bit see better, salivation is inhibited, your airways are relaxed, your heartbeat is increased. So all the functions that would help you immediately run out of danger are activated, while others that are not essential at that moment, like digestion and intestinal activity, are decreased in that moment. So that means that if you are in the fight or flight state for a sustained period of time, your digestion and your rest will be affected. Your body is not going to put resources into that, and you're going to be having a lot of digestive problems. And if we can see here on the left-hand side of this image, we have the parasympathetic nervous system, which is really your rest and digest system, which is kind of in a way the opposite in this simplification, a simple way of seeing it. It's the opposite to the fight or flight, where you can actually rest and digest. You will have your saliva will be stimulated, you will have a slower heartbeat, slower breathing, your stomach will be active, and your intestines will be working better. So you can assimilate food better, you can digest better, you can eliminate better, right? So let's take a look at a little bit about the effect of stress on your body. And it's quite important. So this is a paper about the impact of stress on the body, a review paper. That means that it goes through a lot of other papers to look at what they have found out through research. So let's take a look here. What happens when your body is under constant stress? You will have an impaired immune system. It is a prevailing attitude that stress has a negative effect on the immune system. That means that you're more susceptible to disease, and you can get sick easily. You are also susceptible to cardiovascular disease, as stress increases blood pressure, and it can affect your heart. You will have gastrointestinal complications because, like we saw before, while you're in the fight or flight state, your body does not pay attention to digestion. And this is super important because so many of us have been suffering from digestive problems. And in a way, it's due to stress. There might be other reasons, but stress is a really big part of it. And learning how to step out of that stress will be very important for proper digestion. And not just digestion, your whole gastrointestinal system. So your stomach, the absorption of nutrients, and the subsequent, processing and elimination of waste. You will have changes in hormonal response. So we saw before, your brain activates your emergency systems, and that it means a direct release of a lot of hormones into your bloodstream. So these hormones, they are useful for a period of time, but they are quite harmful for the system over an extended period of time. So they should only be active for short bursts of energy rather than for a long term. And it's been observed that a lot of people are suffering from constant fight or flight response. So stress will also impair your memory. It will affect also the ability that you have of learning. You can check out the article. I'm going to leave the links in the description below. Just to mention that nobody's sponsoring this video. I just found some articles and resources that I think are useful, and I'm going to leave them out here for you guys. So coming back to chronic pain, we've examined what fight or flight is. So this is the immediate reaction of your body to stress. And what is exactly chronic pain? So one of the definitions I found is that chronic pain is persistent pain that lasts from weeks to years. Now, if you're like me, you will find that this definition is a little bit vague. And when I was reading for this video, I find that there's actually no real consensus on what chronic pain constitutes. So some people say that it needs to last for 12 weeks to be considered chronic. Others say 6 months, others say a year. So it's actually very hard to come to a diagnosis or a realization about chronic pain. And one of the problems is that pain is quite subjective. It is based on the experience of each individual and their reported feelings over a period of time. Of course, feelings are always tending to change and morph, so it's not easy to measure chronic pain. It's not easy to measure pain in general. So the current approach is done through surveys, where people are asked a lot of details about their situation, how they feel, how they felt over a period of time, and what impact this has had on their life. And this is the method that's most commonly used even in pain medication research. So it's really still survey-based. There are biological indicators, but they are less used in practice because they are not that common and they are not that congruent. So two people exhibiting kind of the same biological markers could have a completely different experience of pain. And yeah, it's not always known why. However, a person's opinion, a person's feelings and perception of that pain and the impact it's having on their life should always be taken into account. There is a data set that indicates that more than 1.5 billion people around the world experience chronic pain. And we have to say that there is really a difference between pain that has like a purpose or a meaning, like the pain of a surgery or the pain of childbirth, versus pain that has no apparent cause or purpose or consequence, right? It's just pain that appears and appears to stay in the body for a very long period of time. And this affects a lot the way that a person reacts to that pain. So what are the main causes of chronic pain? Here I'm just listing a few of them. I'm not trying to be comprehensive, but some of them are chronic fatigue syndrome, so just being very tired over a period of time so that it becomes chronic. If you actually research this term, chronic fatigue syndrome, it involves a few other things over a period of time. This is a cause of chronic pain. Endometriosis, fibromyalgia, irritable bowel syndrome, and obviously any physical trauma to your body, any accidents that you might have, of course, will cause pain, a surgery, or a cancer. And so here I come back to the distinction between pain that has a very clear cause, a root problem, and pain that doesn't have a very clear cause or purpose in your body, right? And why this is important to differentiate is because we will have the same stress response to both types of pain, while one is indicating that we're actually in danger and we need to take action, and another one is perhaps a bit of an unknown cause, right? It always indicates that you need to take some action, but we'll see in some cases your brain just gets stuck in a pain response. Which brings me to the effects of chronic pain in your body. So if you can see here, the effects of chronic pain on your body are actually quite similar to those of stress. Just going to leave that thought out there. And with a few other things. So eventually it leads to mood, anxiety, and depressive disorder, suicidal thoughts, muscle atrophy. If you're in pain and you stop moving, your muscles will stop working. Muscles have a kind of use it or lose it policy. You need to use them to keep them active. You will have impaired sleep and memory. When you cannot sleep well, your body cannot recover. This is your body's time for recovery, for regeneration. Also psychologically, through dreams, you process a lot of emotions and images that you've seen throughout the day. Sleep is super important. And when sleep is affected, you can be sure that a lot of other things in your body will be affected. And impaired sexual function, as well as observed with chronic pain and also with stress. And there are also changes in brain chemistry and size. So the consensus is that persistent pain generates electrical activity in the peripheral nerves, spinal cord, and the brain. And this is considered to be like a hot wire effect, and it causes degeneration of nerve tissue, particularly in the spinal column. So a recent study showed that low back pain patients may develop cerebral atrophy, and it follows that dementia and other organic brain syndromes may result. So it's really actually something to pay attention to. Take it in mind, pay attention to it. The complications of uncontrolled persistent pain. So this article is found in Practical Pain Management, which is a really useful website with a lot of resources for chronic pain conditions. I'm going to leave the link in the description below as well. But I want to talk a little bit more about the effects of the pain brain. Your brain can actually become wired for pain. So this article on the long-term consequences of chronic pain says that there is evidence that pain becomes a neurological disease in itself. When you're in pain for a very long time, your brain learns a pain state and the nervous system structure is affected. So the article says that when left untreated, pain can become more complex in its pathophysiology, so the problems that it's causing, than the pain caused by the original injury or disease. So these changes involve structural and functional alterations in the nervous system, and pain ceases to be symptomatic of the initial cause and becomes an entirely separate condition. And what will happen is a process called sensitization, because your brain is perceiving pain and it will release pro-inflammatory agents in a local area of injury. And this will be accompanied by functional changes in the neural receptors, so in how your brain receives the signal and the connections, the neural connections that are made between your brain and your spine and your body. And with repeated stimuli, so when this process happens over and over again, over a repeated amount of time, for a longer amount of time, there will be a remodeling of the nervous system, and even alterations in gene expression can result, which can lead to a long-term sensitization, and they can become permanent. So that means that your brain is wired to feel pain even when the source of that pain is gone. It is a learned behavior. And this has been observed. The first indications of this have been studies on amputee patients, people who have lost a limb. And they say that they report that amputated limbs can still feel pains. It happens in up to 80% of people who undergo amputation, especially when they had a chronic problem in that limb before it was amputated. So you can check out this article. It's a bit of a review of the phantom limb pain characteristics. So what is interesting about it is that people are still feeling pain in a body part that does not no longer exists, because the pain is in the brain. Here I have another article about the effect of pain on the brain. And so they say that brain gray matter decrease is a result, a consequence of chronic pain and not the cause of it. So pain will literally make you lose brain matter. So this study follows participants before and after a hip replacement surgery. They noticed that compared to healthy individuals, these people exhibit a gray matter decrease, especially in the areas of the brain that are related to pain and to the specific problem that these people have. What they have seen, because this type of surgery actually corrects that pain, that people, when the source of pain was removed, they did again gain gray matter. So their brains recovered and healed, which is also great news, no? So chronic pain has an effect on the brain, but it is reversible. So, and that's really the good news, and that's why we should take action. There's not always a direct action that can be taken, such as in this study. With the hip replacement surgery, it's not always obvious that every cause of pain can be treated in such a way. And that brings us to our next step, right? So, but before we move on to what to do, I just want to sum up a little bit of what we've been talking about. So, we have a natural fight or flight response, which is our stress response, and it's a very physical response. So, it's really a hormonal response, and your body changes its the state of your nervous system in order to respond to a stress signal. When we are stuck in that stress signal, there will be consequences. When you have chronic pain, your body will be in stress, because pain is a stress signal for your body. And you will have effects on pretty much systemic effects on digestion, on hormones, on immune system level, on the cardiovascular system, on brain matter decrease. There can really be, it's really a systemic effect, right? And you can even become wired for pain. So I'm listing all these things because it's really important to be conscious about a situation, so that you have enough leverage on yourself to decide to take action and look for solutions, right? So here's the part about solutions. So what can you do about chronic pain? So there are, of course, medication alternatives, and on occasion there are treatments that can be suggested to you by your physician, such as surgery. But medication has side effects and consequences, and this is a trade-off that you need to evaluate. Your doctor has to suggest the medication to you, it has to be available, and you need to know that certain medications do have an impact on your organs and your nervous system, and even your digestion, your elimination. So do find out, do your research about what the long-term effects of medication are, and have a very informed conversation with your doctor about it. But what we observe in chronic pain patients is that often they have reached the limits of what conventional medicine can offer. So they have gotten the diagnostics in cases they've had surgeries, they've had even failed surgeries, or they never really got a conclusive diagnosis. They say there is something, but we don't really know the cause, or they have a diagnosis such as chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, ME. There are several other conditions that are a diagnosis, but the immediate cause of the pain is not clear, right? And what I want to point here is that this is not an either-or approach. It's not either medication or non-medication alternatives. They can really coexist with each other, and I think the best thing is when both alternatives are mixed. So here I'm going to refer you to this paper all the authors are part of the Mayo Clinic, and they have a big program in pain research, and they even have a pain clinic where people can come and have a 3-week program. They don't actually stay there. They need to also stay elsewhere. But they come in every day and they get a lot of information about what pain is and how to treat it without medication. So it's basically habits, it's basically relaxation techniques, movement techniques, and how to unlearn the pain brain, basically. So it's working with that brain plasticity. And they have had really good results at the Mayo Pain Clinic. You can check out their website. They have patient success stories and everything. Their program is pretty expensive. For 3 weeks is around $40,000 plus lodgings and food and everything. But they have had really good results with it. And then they wrote this paper where they analyzed a lot of complementary and alternative medicine therapies for chronic pain. So this is a review paper. It's not an experimental paper. So what they look at is other studies that have actually done experiments and followed people around for a period of time. And they basically give you a list of complementary therapies, and they give you a little bit of a rating. Some of them they rate as a bit medium risk and some as low risk. So medium risk, I didn't write it here, but that would be supplements. And it's medium risk because supplements can have interactions with medication and they can have consequences for your body. And the quality of supplements is not always standardized enough. So while some supplements can be quite helpful, you need to do your research, basically. And they're not always indicated for everyone. But there are other low-risk pain reduction techniques, such as massage, including self-massage, body-mind techniques, so meditation, relaxation, learning new behaviors, working with your brain plasticity, yoga and relaxation, and of course, nutrition. Adequate nutrition that will not promote inflammation in your body, that will promote adequate intake of nutrients that you need in order to function correctly, and coupled with the other techniques that will help you actually get out of the fight or flight state and into that rest or digest state. So let's take a look at an example here of a mindfulness technique. So this is a study done where participants, they trained for 8 weeks in meditation, mindfulness-based stress reduction. And they were followed around. They had a magnetic resonance done before the study and after the study. And the study demonstrated that there are changes in brain structure that underlie some of the reported improvements. People are not just feeling better because they are spending time relaxing, but because they are actually affecting the configuration of their brains. So they observed after only 8 weeks an increase in brain matter and structural changes to the amygdala. Remember the amygdala? We talked about it in the fight or flight response. So this is the structure in your brain that responds to emotions and that will create that hormonal response that will set you into the fight or flight state. So this is actually a very promising result. It's true that it was a small study, but it really indicates that mindfulness and meditation are more than just a psychological acts, that they really have an effect on your physiology. And here you can also find a reference by Tara Swart. She's a neuroscientist, a medical doctor, and an author, a leadership advisor. She's faculty at MIT Sloan. And she talks a lot about brain plasticity. What is brain plasticity? It's the ability to learn new things, but also to reconfigure the way that your brain is wired. So remember when we talked before how pain is wiring your brain for more pain? You can work with your brain plasticity to learn new behaviors that are actually useful for you and to get out of those brain pain wiring mechanisms, right? So she proposes 4 main underlying principles to changing your brain, which are neuroplasticity, which is what I just talked about. So building new patterns in your brain. Of course, this is done through a lot of repetition. Brain agility, which is basically, again, just training yourself with certain type of cognitive exercises. Mindset mastery, so how you think. The way that you really think really affects your brain. The more that you think about something, the more that it becomes easier for you to think about it. This is super clear if you ever learned how to drive and you remember that at the first few times you were like, there's so many things to do, there's the cars, if I just focus on driving the car, I can't see the cars go right. At the beginning it's super difficult, and then with time it becomes something that you do almost automatically, and that you can even have a conversation while you are driving. That's because your brain has learned it and you have created a very strong neural connection that allows you to do that more easily. Right? So this is all to say that your thoughts do impact your physiology. So there is a power to positive thinking, and there is also a power to negative thinking. So the more that you do of each, the easier that it will become. And then she also postulates simplifying your life. So taking time off, taking a rest, making things simple can also help your brain a lot. So with this, I just wanted to give you an overview that there are a lot of things that you can do to counteract chronic pain, and they are because of the mechanisms of chronic pain that you can actually take these actions. So chronic pain is causing a fight or flight response in your body, regardless of the cause of that pain, and you can learn to get out of that fight or flight response. You can work with your brain plasticity to learn new behaviors, to associate pleasure with your body rather than just pain. And there's also movement, very targeted movement to release muscles and to release the fascia, so that you can slowly start actually working on the cause of that pain as well. So if you want to take action, you can book a free call with me, and I can go over all the options that there are and see which ones would be good for you. So go to my website, that's my name, arianaramos.com, and book a call with me. I hope that this video has been informative to you, and that you have found some new motivation to take action, whether you or a loved one is suffering from chronic pain, to take it seriously, and do know that there are things that you can do, really, and there are a lot of success stories. So mindset is important. Go look for those success stories in the internet, bathe your head with the possibility that this is possible, and find those solutions. And of course, the first step to finding a solution is realizing that you have a problem and that there are things that you can do about it. And that was the purpose of this video. So thank you very much for listening, and if you have any comments, please leave them to me below. I'll be happy to answer any questions, and have a wonderful day. Bye.